can find Ezekiel in my Bible. I found it. Ezekiel 22, verse 30. I looked for someone who might rebuild the wall of righteousness that guards the land. I first searched for someone to stand in the gap in the wall so I wouldn't have to destroy the land, but I found no one. He says, I looked for someone who might rebuild the wall of righteousness that guards the land. I searched for someone to stand in the gap in the wall so I wouldn't have to destroy the land, but I found no one. That's what we want to focus our thoughts on this morning. As many of you are very well aware of the tragedy that has hit our community. And what happened on Friday, early Friday morning at Santa Fe High School. A lot of lives were changed that day. In a moment's time, in just a few minutes, lives will change forever. And we don't want to forget them. We want to remember them. We want to pray for them. We want to pray for all those who are surrounded in that situation, that are right in the middle of it. So we're going to take time this morning to pray for them and to talk about that. The question that comes up all the time is why? Why does this happen? And everybody's got this cute little answer. Everybody's got one. We've all got an answer. Well, if we just did this, or if we just did that, you've heard me say before, it's a complex problem, and it requires a complex solution. So the cute little tweets and the cute little posts on Facebook are doing nothing but aggravating the situation. If you're, I'm going to just go out on a limb. If you are on social media out of respect, would you not get into the debate about gun control? Can you please not?
Amen.
Just don't. Just leave it alone. We're not even going to talk about that. There'll be plenty of time to talk about it later. But these babies have not even been put in the ground. They have not even had their ceremonies. And we don't need to be in those, you don't need to be defending anything, any right in anything. If you want to post encouraging words, prayer for the families and the communities. And while everybody's got different answers depending on what your solution is, God has an answer that is found in Ezekiel that I read this morning. And it's very surprising as, just kind of talking it out and thinking it through and praying about it. The answer is so simple. It's right in front of us. Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And so hating on, the person who committed this, that's not the answer. We hate what the person did, but he was a very troubled young man. Had a lot of issues, and that'll be dealt with soon enough. But Ezekiel says that God looked for someone who's standing in the gap. So let me tell you what that means. That all around us in our society today, there are boys and girls, children. There are teenagers, and even adults. In fact, you may be sitting to someone right now who is an at-risk individual. What do I mean by at risk? It means that they have been abused. They have suffered some traumatic event in their life. They feel neglected. They feel unloved. They feel forgotten. They're full of anger, confusion, and hatred. So what is the answer? The answer is that you and I have an opportunity every day to recognize who those individuals are, whether it's a child who's been neglected by their parents, whether it's an adult who has come back from the wars and suffered with PTSD or some other issues, whether it's a person, that we go to school with or work with And we know that they're struggling. And a lot of times we have this tendency to go, I wish that kid's parents would do something. I sure wish this situation was different. If they just weren't on drugs, that kid wouldn't be in the mess that he's in. That's not good enough. It never has been. God says, I'm looking for somebody who stand in the gap and rebuild the wall of righteousness. I know we can get into the whole, let's build the wall, build the wall, build the wall. Right? We can chant it all day long, Trump supporters, build the wall, build the wall. God is saying actually the same thing. He's not talking about that wall. He's talking about a wall of righteousness. He's saying, I need people to stand in the gap for those at-risk individuals to step into their lives and be that person that they need. Be that godly man. Be that godly woman. Be that godly friend that can step in there and say, hey, I'll be your friend. I'll love you. I'll accept you. I'll walk with you through this. And they need to know that they're loved. It's such a simple thing, but it can be a lifelong thing. It can mean taking a child who has been neglected and just begin to love on that child. Begin to make them part of your family. Just pretend they're your family. Just love on them. Now, if you need to pretend that they're strangers for you to love them better, go ahead and do that. But love on them. That's what God is talking about. Love is always the answer. Love, not an argument, not a political statement, not a demanding of our rights, but it's always love. Love is always the answer. Because love overlooks a multitude of sins. Love covers a lot of faults. And love will step into that picture where that absent father's or the absent mother's at, and will step in there and say, may not be your father, I may not be your mother, but I'm going to love you. And I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to take care of you. I want to be part of your life. In the small things and the big things. Because if we start, that's the gap that God is talking about. There's a wall of righteousness around our country. There's a wall of righteousness around our communities, around our churches and our schools and so forth. And God is saying, if I can get people to stand in those gaps, there's gaps that are missing by these at-risk individuals, there's a gap there. In other words, there's something missing. There's a person missing in there that can be the presence. You've heard me say this over and over again. My daily prayer, God Almighty, be the aroma and the fragrance of Jesus to whoever I come in contact to. I don't want them to see me, but I want them to definitely know He's been with Jesus. I definitely want them to know, hey, I felt the love of the Lord when that person is around me. And that's what we have to do, is we have to be the light shining in the darkness for these individuals. And who knows what tragedies we can prevent just by standing in the gap with these individuals, with these teens that are hurting, that are confused, that are being bullied in school, sometimes even by adults. They're being bullied by their friends, and it's, anybody remember what it was like besides the teenagers? They know. Any of you older folks remember what it was like to be a teenager? It was horrible. I would not want to do that again. And they say menopause is teenage years backwards. Oh my God, help me Jesus. Don't want to do that either. Midlife crisis? I don't think so. It's tough when you're being bullied and you're being made fun of because you're different, right? But we as moms and dads and friends and neighbors and as people of God, we have the opportunity and really the responsibility. Because God is saying, with wickedness in a nation, there comes judgment. But God stops and He says, before I send judgment, I want to see if there's somebody who is standing in the gaps. So build up that wall of righteousness to hold back the judgment. And that's what I'm asking me of myself. God, if I see that somewhere, let me stand in that gap. Let me be there for someone. And right now, people don't need, like I said, our cute little tweets or posts. What they need is a hug. They need to be loved on. They need somebody to weep with them. They need somebody to stand with them. We have families that are hurting. And so Friday, after everything that was going on, it was afternoon, and Pastor Brad Drake from Santa Fe messaged and said, hey, they're needing some chaplains down here before they contact the families. So I went down there and was able to get into the facility where the families were waiting. It's nearly, we waited till almost, I guess it was 4:35, 5:30. And there's families in there that had not heard from their children since 7:30 that morning. And parents had been calling all the local hospitals, hoping maybe they were wounded, maybe they're hiding in a closet. So all the officials were going through all the rooms in the high school and everywhere that they could go, looking to see if just possibly their child was hiding. At the same time, officials were having to confirm the identity of those who had passed. And so the tension, the heart rate, you could see it in the faces of the families. It's heart-wrenching. And Kenny is the assistant fire chief in Santa Fe. He was there with some stretchers and some people with the ambulance just in case they were going to need the help of some of these families. Pastor Drake was there. Kelly Ward, some of you remember Kelly Ward from Soul Mission, the shoe guy. He flown in. He's a licensed counselor. He came in to be with them and to help out. And we were just kind of, there to be the presence of Jesus, the ministry of presence. And then late in the day when finally one of the Texas Rangers came in and they had to go into a room and they said, we're going to call the name out. We're going to send some counselors with you and take the family into a room to let you know everything that we know. And so, of course, if you're a family and you're waiting, when they call your name, we need to speak to such and such family, right then and there. And the heartbreak and the crying and the anger and the frustration and the questions and the confusion as each little group would come out and say, we need to talk to this family, we need to talk to that family, one after the other after the other. And your heart is just breaking for them, weeping for them. And so you can see when you see that, how frustrating it is when you get on social media and somebody's already hating on the shooter or defending their right. Like, really? You're defending your gun rights? There's moms and dads that are mourning the loss of their child. There's families that are mourning the loss of their grandmother and mother. There are people that are struggling. Even the survivors have survivor's guilt and they'll struggle with that. The teacher who was supposed to be in the art class took the day off. That's why there was a substitute teacher in there that day. And she's going to need prayer as she struggles with those feelings and emotions. But the answer is always love. The answer is always love. And so the question, you might say, well, why? Change the question. Quit asking why and start asking how. How can I help? How can I be there for them? How can I pray for them? What can I do to make this easier? How can I minister to the family or the friends of the family? And I know that one of the young girls went to the Santa Fe, the Dayspring Assembly of God Church. And a dear friend of Angela's was one of the victims as well. So we have a video. We're going to call the names out. We're going to light a candle as we call each name out. And then we're going to take time to pray. And I asked Kenny to stand in representing the first responders as we get to pray for them. And so he's going to come in just a few minutes. And then if there's any teachers, we'd like you to come up. Yolanda's going to help me in leading our prayer. She's our director of prayer ministries. As we pray for our schools and our teachers and administrators, if we have any teachers or administrators here, if you'd like to come and stand, we'd like for you to represent. Tanya, I know that you worked, I think, in Santa Fe. Did you work in Santa Fe School District? No? Dickinson School District? Yeah. Lunch lady, right? Yeah. She's in charge of all those lunch ladies. I love it. We want you can come and stand when time comes for you and stand and representing them. And just any of the others that we'll call out here in a little bit. But I want us to pray. Prayer is the biggest, strongest weapon that we have, right next to love. Love. If we can love one another, if we can ask the Holy Spirit, Lord, would you show me someone